Hi Stampers, it's Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Welcome to our Monday Live. Today we are going to be doing this card right here. It's kind of a diamond front card. It's really simple to do and just something that's a little bit different. And we're going to be doing that with the A Child is Born stamp set, which is part of our last chance category. Have you noticed that last month or last week, Stampin' Up! Updated their last chance category? They have combined the retirement list and the last chance, or no, they have combined the retirement list and the, um, what did they used to call it? Clearance rack. They combined the clearance rack and the retirement list into the last chance category, which means that things from the September to December catalog that would normally be on the retirement list are now on our last chance list, and they are discounted and ready to go. So don't forget to check that out. And you're going to want to do that this week because Stampin' Up! Is offering free shipping once again from December 10th through the 12th. So Wednesday through Friday, if you place a qualifying order, you're going to get that shipped to you for free. So exciting news. But let's go ahead and get started with our card. Okay, so here we are down on my desk. And again, we're using the A Child is Born stamp set, and then we're going to use one of the dies from the textured notes dies. You know me and how much I love our standard shaped dies, and this is one of my favorites because not only are they plain old rectangles, but they have these neat little stitchings and designs around the outside edge, which I just think are super cool because otherwise we could just cut a rectangle with our trimmer, right? But the textured notes dies give us some extra added fun to our rectangles. Okay, for our card base, I'm going to start out with a standard 8.5 by 5.5 scored at 4 1/4, and I'm using Misty Moonlight. That is one of the colors out of the designer series paper. I am using the Peaceful Gardens designer series paper, and I'm using this star pattern. I have two pieces here, and they're slightly different. Not by much, but they are a little bit different. This one here is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, which is going to be our inside layer. And then the outside is 4 by 5 1/4. We're going with our really skinny little border around the outside edge, but because this not only has a border here, but also in here and right there and over here, that's where that extra 1/8 of an inch difference is, because we have some additional cardstock being shown from behind. What we're going to want to do first, and then I have our, standard 4 1/8 by 5 and 4 by 5 1/4 white. That's going to go inside. And then I have some scraps. So there are those. But our first thing to do on the card base is I wanted to find the center. So I'm going to use my grid paper up here, and I'm going to use the 0 in the middle. And I'm going to line this up until I have an even, something on either side. So it's 2 3/4 is going to make that my middle here. And then I want to use my trimmer, and we're going to cut that. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my trimmer, and I got a new trimmer on the sale last week because it was only $16 and I think 80 cents or something, but I just thought that was a fantastic deal. And so I don't have it yet, but I'm going to be putting a piece of tear and tape behind here because, as you can see, it's a little difficult to see the numbers. I mean, you can see them, but if I had that white tear and tape behind there, you could see that even better. But I'm going to put this bottom corner here into the track, and then I want this little mark up here in the track as well. Okay, and I'm going to get that by putting it, you know, this corner in the track and that corner in the track. That's going to put me there. Is that making sense? If I have this corner here and this corner here, most likely my little mark in the middle is going to be in there. I don't want to start at the bottom and run into this corner because I don't want to smash it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it down in the middle, and then I'm going to go up to that mark, and then I can come down to the corner. Okay, and then I'm going to rotate that, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm putting my two corners in there and double checking that it is indeed going to put that little mark in the center. Then I'm going to drop my blade in the middle and slide up to that mark and then down to the corner. Okay. So that's going to cut that out. And I'm going to save this piece because we're going to rotate it and glue it down again. So that's how we're getting our front triangles. Okay. To decorate that, we're going to be using our designer series paper. And so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the piece and we're going to find the middle. So I'm putting it even on the two sides. Then we're going to make this mark in the middle. Now you can decide what you want to do. On this piece here, I left the designer series paper whole, and I found the middle on the white. And then I just made the triangle out of the white. You could put the white down solid and make your triangles out of the designer series paper, either way. But just the idea is that we want the triangle back there to be white in the middle and designer series paper on the edges. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and lay the larger piece down solid, and then I'm going to put my white triangle over it. So I'm going to again put this in the track. I'm going to put the corner down here and my mark up there. I'm going to start from the top this time and come down, because again, I don't want to mash into a corner. So now we have two corners, so I think I'll go in the middle. But that's going to give me my inside triangle. And then we want our outside one, and you can barely see on here because it's a dark designer series paper, but there is a pencil mark up there. Okay. I think the other reason why I did the white triangle instead of making triangles out of my designer series paper is because they did start out in different sizes and I don't want to mix them up. So if I know my inside layer is the solid one, then I'm not going to mix these corners with this triangle. Does that make sense? Okay. So this was a full sheet. I cut off the corners. We can use these as scraps. And then we're going to take our pieces from the card base and we're going to match them up. And so that's going to give us our little teeny border around there that's going to be fairly even. if I cut them right. Okay, so we're going to glue that one down, and then we're going to glue these two down. And because of that tiny, skinny border, I'm going to do this with liquid glue. So you don't want very much liquid glue because we don't want to warp the paper. But the liquid glue is going to give us a little bit of wiggle time so that once I put that down, I can kind of maneuver it a tiny bit until I've got it in the right position that I'm comfortable with. Okay, and I can see a tiny bit of my pencil mark, so I'm just going to come in here and erase that. And then I'm going to want to glue this way. Okay, so I'm going to put some adhesive right back here. And then glue that down. Okay, you need to be kind of careful. You notice I got a little bit on the inside. But it's kind of pushed up to that score line, just not interfering with it. Okay, then I'm going to take my inside layers. So I'm going to take my designer series paper. Wiggle that around for my skinny border. And then I'm going to glue my white triangle over it. So as I said earlier, you could, if you chose to, leave the whites in all-in-one rectangle and cut triangles out of the designer series paper. I just didn't want to get the two sheets mixed up since they were indeed different sizes. Okay, then we're going to do a little bit of stamping on our scrap pieces here. So I'm going to bring in my smoky slate for stamping the little animals out of our nativity scene over here. Okay, then we're going to fussy cut those out with our little fine point scissors. Done by the magic of video over here. Then I'm going to do the manger in what is this, pecan pie. And then I'm going to color that with the Stampin' blends. So for the hay, I am using the Daffodil Delight. I'm starting out with the darker color, kind of going around the edges where I feel it would be a little bit darker, show some shadows. Then I'm going to fill it in with the lighter. I'm using the smaller end of the pen just because it is a small image, but I'm still going to make swirls. I'm going around in circles and drawing over the top of the dark, kind of drawing it around because I want it nice and moist on there, because the ink getting really wet is what's going to help them blend together. And I used a water-based ink in order to color with alcohol-based markers. If I was doing watercoloring, I would do the reverse, because watercolor is done with water for the color. Then I would be using alcohol-based ink, such as the StazOn for the ink, because like mediums are going to blend together and the opposite medium is what's going to stay put. So whatever you're coloring with, you want all that to blend together. So your outline should be in the opposite medium. That's how I try to remember it. Again, I'm going down with the dark, putting in my shadows, and then I'm going to go back over it with the light and blend it all together, making small circles, going over the dark ink and dragging it into the light. To blend that all together. Then we're going to go ahead and fussy cut this one. I'm getting really close to the edge and slicing, and then I'm kind of turning the paper. Okay, so I have the paper kind of back in my scissors, kind of down towards the base, and then I'm just very slowly closing the scissors, and as I close them, I'm spinning the paper, keeping my hand in a comfortable position, and then turning the paper. Once I get down to the end, I'm going to slide everything up and be down at the base again, and then repeat. Okay, now I'm not real tight up here, which can be okay. You can leave it like that, or you can go back in after the fact and cut a little closer. Remember, you can always cut more away, but you can't add it back on. So don't get overly excited and chop in too far. Okay, if I decide that any of this is not tight enough, then I can come back in with just little wedges and pull those out. Okay, so I'm not going to get too carried away here on camera, but you see what I mean, how you can just snip in and take little triangles out. To get closer if you need to. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the front using some dimensionals. Now this has a little bit of a white outline on it, which when I did that kind of bothered me. So what I did was I came back in and I thought, you know, what we can do is just go over that with the marker. Get some scrap paper here. And I should have known that we can just color outside the lines and so I'm just going over that white that's sticking out, which again is going to help if we didn't get tight enough where you wanted to. But see how that gets rid of that white edge? So again, I'm going to come in with my light. And there we go. Okay, so that's just a little tip when you're fussy cutting something. Sometimes we want that little bit of a white outline and sometimes we don't. And so just taking our markers and coloring in that white helped me get rid of that. Okay, I'm going to pop this up on dimensionals. So I'm going to bring in some minis because they're going to fit nicely down here. And then I'm going to cut out a white rectangle using that rectangle from the Textured Notes dies. And again, it's a matter of preference on whether or not you want to stamp first and then die cut, or die cut and then stamp. There's really no right or wrong. It's more of a personal preference. But we'll go ahead and take that and die cut a white rectangle. When you feed them through the machine, I have my precision base plate, so that's why it looks mirrored like that. And you'll find that in my Amazon store, which is linked on my website under Craft Room Favorites. But if you're using the plastic, you know, for both plates, you want to make sure that you are, number one, moving it around. You want to do various parts of your base so that it is cut evenly. You want your nicer plate on the top, so you'll have the one with more cuts on it on the bottom, your nicer one on top, and then each time you run it through, you're going to rotate and you're going to flip it back and forth, trying to give it even pressure to avoid the warping. And then you also, when you're setting things down, you have a tendency to want to lay things down straight and feed them through that way. But it's a little bit easier on your machine and your plates if you turn your rectangles and your shapes at kind of an odd angle as they go through. Rather than having it run up to this lip all at once, it will run into the point, making it work better. Here we are with our rectangle. And then I'm going to stamp on that with our sentiment in, we can do either Night of Navy or the Misty Moonlight. Either one will work. And I'm going to do For Unto Us a Child is Born. Kimberly says that using coordinating designer series paper would be cool too. Yes, it would. And I actually have a sample of that because I did do a few others. This one I'm just gonna lay down straight. Do that with down here. I also know what I am doing on Thursday, so I have that sample for you as well. So kind of hang out for a bit, and while you're waiting, don't forget to like, share, comment, all those good things. That helps me get seen, which helps me stay in business so I can bring you more of these. So there is our card. And then, as I said, I did another one using designer series paper that coordinated. So this is using our Color Families designer series paper. And so I mixed Petunia Pop with Pretty in Pink, which is two of our in colors. And then I die cut a few elements to put on the outside. So there is that. On Thursday, we're going to be doing a drapery fold technique. So this is our reversed drapery fold. So it's going to be high in the middle, come down on the two sides. So come back on Thursday to find out how to do that one. Okay, so again, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you back here on Thursday when we make our drapery fold card, which is another card for my Fun Fold Tutorial Book 4, which is on its way soon. Thanks. Bye.